Deputy Chief Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda has dismissed as outrageous and utterly false speculation by Jubilee MPs over the abduction and murder of alleged witness Meshack Yebei. Leaders led by National Assembly Majority Leader Aden Duale on Wednesday demanded answers as to why the prosecution had allegedly been involved with Yebei, whom Deputy President William Ruto maintains was his defense witness. But as KTN's associate editor Noah Otieno reports, Bensouda has categorically stated that they contacted but later dropped Yebei as a potential witness after discovering Yebei was involved corrupting witnesses in the Ruto Sang case.
Na inaonekana hii mtu alipitia tocha kubwa sana.
Majeraha maybe ya kukatwa nini.
He left home in broad daylight. Just a short walk to fetch water from a local dispensary, a routine errand in the quiet town of Tarbo. He didn't carry a bag. He didn't tell anyone he was afraid. He didn't know he was walking straight into a trap. By nightfall, Meshack Yebei was gone. No signs of struggle, no calls, no ransom, no goodbyes. 3 days later, a mutilated body surfaced hundreds of kilometers away, floating in the murky waters near River Yala. A man barely recognizable, teeth knocked out, face shattered, fingerprints burned. The government called for patience. The ICC offered concern. But for the family of Meshack Yebei, the man once tied to one of the most powerful courtrooms in the world, only silence echoed back. Was he targeted for what he knew? Was he punished for stepping away from the witness protection? Or was he simply another casualty in a system where truth is too dangerous to speak? This is the story of a man who may have known too much and died for it. This is the story of Meshack Yebei. Dark Echoes 254. Long before his name echoed through courtrooms and newspapers, Meshack Yebei was a grounded, humble figure in Tarbo constituency, Uasin Gishu County, an area known more for its lush maize farms and dusty football fields than political headlines. He was born into a deeply religious, close-knit Kalenjin family in Keptebe village, a rural settlement where land ownership, family honors, and quiet service shaped manhood. Meshack was one of many sons in a farming family, raised with the values of obedience, hard work, and humility. His upbringing was shaped by the rhythm of village life, early morning milking routines, long walks to school, church on Sundays, and family council that resolved disputes under mango trees. The Yebei household was modest, not rich in material things, but rich in structure. Patriarchal values were tempered by Christian teachings, and education was seen not just as a path to employment, but a moral obligation. Meshack attended Kaptebe Primary School, where he quickly earned a reputation as a quiet, sharp and respectful boy, never the loudest but always the most reliable. Teachers described him as a boy who preferred tasks over talk, rarely drawn to fights or disruptions. He passed his KCPE with above average marks and earned placement in a local secondary school, though it's unclear whether he ever pursued higher education beyond O levels. Despite no records of a university degree, what Meshack lacked in academics credentials, he made up for it in community literacy. He developed a talent for understanding people, knowing what issues triggered anxiety in the village, when to speak in council meetings, and how to navigate the political undercurrents without attracting unnecessary enemies. He grew into adulthood during a time of great national tension, the early 2000s, when Kenya's politics were reshaping rapidly with the fall of KANU's grip. Meshack began participating in local youth groups, church welfare committees, and elders' council, slowly transitioning from being just a villager's son to a man of influence in the ward. Meshack Yebei's rise wasn't flashy, it was incremental. In Tarbo, political power often starts at the ward levels, through service in village development committees, land arbitration boards, or CDF project monitoring groups. Yebei's reputation as someone who could get things done without drama earned him trust, and soon he was appointed to serve as the constitutional secretary for Eldoret North, specifically for Tapsagoi Ward. In this role, Yebei became the bridge between county authorities and villagers. He assisted in resolving land title disputes, coordinated minor government projects such as borehole drilling and school renovations, and relayed feedback from constituents during constitutional forums after the 2010 reforms. Though not elected by ballot, his authority was recognized and respected. He worked with confidence in barazas, and when he spoke, even area chiefs paused to listen. People brought him their petitions, complaints, CVs for job recommendations, and even requested for school fees help. In a county where flashy leadership often eclipsed quiet competence, Meshack Yebei was rare. He wasn't in it for the spotlight, and that made him even more trustworthy. Yebei's political leaning was aligned with the Rift Valley political consciousness, deeply rooted in the Kalenjin identity and the community's desire for regional autonomy and fair treatment by the state. He viewed politics not just as a contest for power, but as means of defending community dignity. That lens shaped how he spoke about land rights, youth unemployment, and the marginalization of smaller communities in national policy making. Though not loud about party affiliations, Yebei's views resonated with the United Republic Party (URP) under William Ruto, especially as URP positioned itself for the voice of the Rift Valley in the aftermath of the 2007-2008 post-election crisis. He attended regional political forums, participated in civic education drives on the new constitution, and even helped mobilize youth for peaceful voting in the lead up to the 2013 general election. He believed in order, loyalty, and ethnic unity, which sometimes placed him in contentious ideological spaces. He was known to critique what he called elite betrayal, where politicians ignored grassroots needs after election. Yet, he never disrespected authority. Instead, he worked behind the scenes, gathering grievances and presenting them calmly during public participation meetings. At his core, Yebei was a family man, married and raising children in Tarbo. He was known to carry his youngest child on his back during family events. He was also a devout Christian, often quoting scriptures when speaking in public. He didn't drink or smoke and discouraged youth from doing so. On weekends, he attended church, and during school holidays, he volunteered as youth mentoring sessions. Unlike many in politics, Meshack never used bribes to build loyalty. His influence stemmed from relational capital, favors, reliability, and emotional intelligence. He remembered people's names, asked about their parents, and even showed up to funerals and weddings uninvited, simply because it was the right thing to do. He mentored younger boys in the village, warning them against city politics and urging them to keep their hands clean. To his inner circle, he was not just a political figure, he was the moral compass. By 2013, Meshack Yebei was being whispered about as potential member of county assembly candidate for the next election. He had the name recognition, the trust, and the record of service. While some speculated that he was being courted by senior political operatives in the Rift Valley to assist with sensitive assignments, others believed he would rise through formal ranks and perhaps even challenge for a parliamentary seat. At the time, he appeared to be at the peak of his influence, balancing home life, political work, and community service with remarkable steadiness. His role as Tapsagoi's liaison to county developments was growing, and his presence in local governance conversation was firm, but history would have other plans. Yebei's work at ward level aligned with Ruto's broader political base, and over time, he became part of the inner support structure that mobilized grassroots opinion in Ruto's favor. While he never held formal office beyond his ward's post, his access to community leaders and his ear on the ground made him an indispensable liaison in local political operations. His Connections to Ruto's orbit became publicly acknowledged during the ICC trial. Over time, his local work evolved into something far more complex, a critical role in the defense effort of Deputy President William Ruto at the International Criminal Court. Although never listed as an official prosecution witness, Yebei's name emerged repeatedly in court documents and reports as someone closely associated with the machinery surrounding witness management in the Ruto Sang case. According to Fatou Bensouda, the ICC prosecutor at the time, Yebei had once been identified as a potential prosecution witness but was later dropped due to concerns over his credibility and possible involvement in witness interference. Despite this, Ruto's lead defense counsel, Karim Khan, publicly described Yebei as a key defense witness, one whose testimony would have been valuable to the defense. This declaration opened a fresh layer of tension between the defense and the prosecution, placing Yebei at the center of a legal and political tug of war. In 2013, the ICC's Victims and Witnesses Unity briefly offered Yebei protection. However, he declined permanent relocation, instead choosing to return to his home in Tarbo. It's unclear whether his decision stemmed from confidence in his safety or desire to remain close to his family or pressure from powerful actors on the ground. ICC Registrar Herman von Hebel later confirmed that although Yebei was not an active witness, the court remained deeply concerned for his safety and stood ready to assist Kenyan authorities if his safety was compromised. Over time, human rights activists and ICC observers increasingly linked Yebei to attempts at witness interference. Kenyan activist Ken Wafula was among those who spoke publicly about Yebei's role in what he described as coordinated efforts to dissuade or compromise prosecution witnesses. At one point, Wafula even referenced phone call recordings and first-hand accounts indicating that Yebei had been involved in high-level discussions around bribery and intimidation of ICC witnesses. This fueled speculation that Yebei may have crossed a line from grassroots involvement to complicity in a transnational legal conspiracy. By 2014, the stakes had risen. The ICC cases were moving forward. The witness list was narrowing and tensions in political and legal circles were nearing a boiling point. Yebei's dual identity as a civic-minded community figure and a behind-the-scene operator for the defense placed him in a dangerous liminal space. He was trusted by some, distrusted by others, and clearly under surveillance. Throughout that year, Yebei reported being followed. Friends and family said he spoke openly about threats to his life. One incident involved an unknown vehicle tailing him home, with its occupants later inquiring about where he lived. These reports were relayed to the authorities, yet no investigation was launched. The timeline leading to his disappearance began in earnest in late 2014. On December 3rd, Uhuru Kenyatta's ICC case was dropped, but the Ruto Sang trial continued. With fewer witnesses and increased scrutiny on the conduct of both prosecution and defense, everyone involved in the case knew pressure was mounting. In the weeks that followed, Yebei remained in Tarbo, continuing to juggle community engagement and alleged behind-the-scenes communication with witness and defense operatives. In December 28, 2014, the day he disappeared, Yebei had taken his wife, heavily pregnant at the time, and their child to a local clinic in Tarbo. After the visit, he reportedly told them that he was going to buy water from a nearby kiosk. It was a routine errand and remarkable in every way. Yet he never returned. Eyewitnesses claimed he was seen being forced into a dark-colored saloon car shortly after leaving the clinic. The area was unusually saturated with plainclothes officers from the flying squad and CID that day, as senior political figures were said to be visiting the region. It is not clear whether Yebei's disappearance was related to that heightened security presence, but the timing raised alarms. In December 29th, Yebei's family filed a missing person report at Eldoret police station. His relative expressed immediate suspicion that his disappearance was linked to his ICC-related work, particularly considering his past threats and refusal to go into full protection. The police, however, moved slowly. No such parties were launched, no formal investigation initiated, at least not publicly. On December 30th, the family received a text message purportedly from Yebei himself, stating that he was safe and had traveled to Uganda with ICC assistance. The family immediately doubted the authenticity of this message, noting irregular language, tone, and contradictions with previous conversation. It appears to be a deliberate attempt of misinformation. In the days that followed, concern turned to dread. Rumors swirled in both the press and legal circle. Was Yebei abducted by rogue state agents? Had he been targeted by criminal intermediaries trying to silence him? Was this an internal fallout with others involved in defense coordination? No one had answers, but what was undeniable was that the timing of his disappearance was deeply significant. It came just weeks before critical witness testimony was to be examined in The Hague, and just days after prosecutors redoubled their efforts to expose networks of witness interference within Kenya. Yebei's final movement was simple, almost mundane: a clinic visit, a walk to buy water. But layered beneath these ordinary acts was a storm of political tension, court intrigue, and covert activity. His increasing visibility, refusal to fully withdraw from ICC environment, and dual allegiance made him a liability to someone. And in that volatile climate, visibility could be fatal. It was the early morning of Saturday, January 2nd, 2015, when a gruesome discovery disrupted the calm near the man-eaters area of Tsavo National Park in Taita Taveta County. Locals stumbled upon a body floating along the edge of River Yala. What they saw was no ordinary drowning. It was a scene soaked in savagery. The man's body had begun to bloat from decomposition, but the mutilation were unmistakable. The corpse had been tortured beyond recognition, his eyes gouged out, his genitals hacked off, his tongue sliced out, and he had been shot in the head. His head was partially skinned with deep lacerations, and one ear had been cleanly severed. The hands were bound, showing signs of restraint, and a length of wire was looped tightly around his neck, as if to choke or drag him. At first, police in Voi treated it as an unidentified homicide and transferred the body to Moi District Hospital mortuary. But the sheer brutality of the murder stirred whispers across the country. It wasn't long before people began to support that this was not just any murder. A missing man from Eldoret, Meshack Yebei, had vanished just 5 days earlier after receiving a suspicious phone call. When news of the body reached his family, his brother made the trip to Voi. Despite the horrific disfigurement, he noticed a small yet unmistakable detail: a hospital wristband from a past admission at a facility near Eldoret. With a heavy voice, he told the authorities, "It is him." The family demanded official verification, and a DNA test was ordered. When the results returned, the dread was confirmed. The mutilated body was indeed Meshack Yebei. The implications were immediate and severe. Yebei wasn't just a civilian. He was a man with ties to the most politically volatile trial in Kenya's modern history, the International Criminal Court case against Deputy President William Ruto. Defense lawyer Karim Khan reacted with outrage, calling Yebei a critical witness for the defense and demanding international intervention. But instead of unity, the narrative fractured. The ICC office of the prosecutor swiftly distanced themselves, issuing a controversial statement that contradicted everything Yebei's family and legal representative had believed. They claimed that Yebei was not a prosecution witness, and instead had been implicated in witness interference schemes. It was a cold and clinical disavowal, arriving just days after his body had been found tortured and dumped. This sudden U-turn sparked confusion and fury. If he wasn't under ICC protection, then who was responsible for his safety? Why did Ruto's legal team hail him as vital, only for the ICC to brand him untrustworthy? The public watched as international justice squirmed behind technicalities, while a man's savagely butchered body rotted in a county far from where he had vanished. In the following days, a man named Isaac Ruto was arrested in connection with the case. He had allegedly made contact with Yebei around the time he disappeared, but the arrest fell apart quickly. No charges were filed and the case was allowed to go cold. As far as the state was concerned, it was just another body. Yebei's funeral was held on 7th March 2015 in his home village of Kaptebe, Uasin Gishu County. Mourners gathered, but none of the powerful voices who once claimed his as essential appeared. No member of the ICC, no political allies, no state security to protect the grieving family. His widow, Gladys, broke down in tears before the congregation, asking, if he was so important, why did they abandon him? Why did they let him die like this? The image of 3 children clinging to their mother, too young to grasp the full weight of the violence that stole their father, is one that continues to haunt the memory of that day. Almost immediately after news broke that Yebei was missing, questions of accountability, protection, and political interference surfaced with full force. At the center of the storm stood Kenya's then Deputy President William Ruto, whose ICC trial over post-election violence placed heightened scrutiny on every witness. William Ruto's lead counsel, Karim Khan, had earlier described Yebei as critical defense witness and publicly called on the Kenyan government to conduct a full-scale investigation and ensure Yebei's safety. But these agencies seemed to evaporate once Yebei's disappearance became politically inconvenient. Critics pointed to the inconsistency. Why had the defense pushed so fervently for answers initially, only to retreat into silence when deeper investigation was most needed? That silence didn't go unnoticed. Civil society groups, human rights activists, and even ICC observers began to question the intentions behind the defense withdrawal. Many saw it as an abandonment, not only of Yebei's family, who were desperate for answers, but also of broader accountability in the ICC Kenya cases. The Kenya state too faced growing pressure. Though the ICC registrar issued statement offering assistance, no formal protection mechanism was activated. Witness protection program, both local and international, appeared disjointed and insufficient. And in the days that followed, no coordinated investigation was launched to trace the cause or culprits behind Yebei's disappearance. The ICC prosecution under Fatou Bensouda at the time was swift to deny any involvement in the case. They labeled all allegations linking the court to any harm against Yebei as outrageous and utterly false. According to them, Yebei had once been under consideration as prosecution's witness but had been dropped due to integrity concerns. Nevertheless, the optics were disastrous. One of the ICC's most visible witnesses was gone, and neither the court nor the Kenyan state seemed prepared to handle the fallout. More worryingly, Yebei's disappearance seemed to confirm long-standing fears that ICC witnesses in Kenya were being actively targeted, regardless of whether they were aligned with the defense or prosecution. His case became emblematic of the dangerous vacuum in protection structures, fueling distrust in domestic and international justice mechanism. Activist Ken Wafula, a key voice in Rift Valley, said publicly that Yebei's case was not isolated. He cited a list of suspected perpetrators and insisted that local police, leaders, and state agents were either complicit or negligent. According to him, the message was clear: anyone connected to the ICC was vulnerable. Wafula's advocacy put a spotlight on the failure of Kenya's government to safeguard its citizens, particularly those entangled in politically sensitive judicial process. This vulnerability became even more apparent as other witnesses reportedly went missing or received threats. The atmosphere around the ICC trial grew increasingly toxic. John Aburetsi, another informant linked to ICC matters, had vanished months earlier and was never found. The media remained largely silent, and law enforcement made no visible progress in any of these cases. The chilling effects on ICC proceedings was undeniable. Witnesses who had previously come forward began to withdraw their testimonies or go silent. A climate of fear took root. Legal experts and observers warned that the Kenya cases were now operating in a context where truth-telling could be fatal. The Kenyan Witness Protection Agency, though established for precisely these types of cases, remained largely absent. Bureaucratic overlaps and political reluctance rendered it ineffective. In theory, the agency had the mandate to secure high-risk individuals like Yebei. In practice, it was underfunded, underutilized, and reportedly influenced by political interests. Internationally, Yebei's case prompted harsh criticism of the ICC capacity to operate in volatile regions without robust support system. The court's failure to ensure the safety of high-risk witnesses was seen as weakness that could be exploited by those seeking to derail justice. The prosecution's repeated emphasis on non-involvement did little to appease civil society groups who were demanding structural reforms and stronger protective oversight. Domestically, the silence of key political figures were deafening. Despite Yebei hailing from the same region as Deputy President Ruto, no senior leaders came forward to offer condolence, support, or solidarity. To his family and local community, this silence was interpreted not just as political distancing, but as complicity, or, at the very least, calculated indifference. In the end, Yebei's case became more than just a tragedy. It became a litmus test, a test of the ICC promise to protect those who assist in the pursuit of justice, a test of Kenya's institutions to shield their citizens from politically charged violence, and perhaps most tragically, a test of whether truth and justice can coexist in a system where power often prevails over accountability. Thank you for watching.